sulla pompa. L'intervista di oggi è stata realizzata il 4 di marzo al New Age Club di Roncade. Siamo riusciti a raggiungere un importantissimo chitarrista nel panorama della chitarra progressive metal. Lui si chiama Richard Henshall ed è chitarrista e fondatore di una band che si chiama Haken. Con lui abbiamo parlato della sua formazione musicale, della sua strumentazione e di che direzione sta prendendo il mondo della chitarra. Buona visione a tutti.
Growing up, I had an acoustic guitar lying around in my house that belonged to my father. And I used to pick up the guitar and just strum chords, very basic stuff to start off with. And I used to gravitate towards the likes of Johnny Greenwood
Oh, yes.
from Radiohead, and those guys were my favorite band for many years. I just loved the interesting chord shapes that he would come out with, and also loved his use of sound design on the guitar. Like, he came out with really interesting tones, which really struck my attention. So that was like the first part. Then when I was around about 16, I was heavily into kind of metal music at that time. And I was like into hardcore bands from the UK and also from New York. But then I came across Dream Theater, and I was at 16 at the time, and I heard Awake, and that just blew me away. It really showed me this whole new world of guitar playing. And I distinctly remember hearing Erotomania
Yes.
and just Petrucci's crazy string skipping stuff. And I couldn't quite believe that it was real. So I remember watching a video and thinking, wow, he's actually playing this stuff. And that really opened lots of doors for me, and almost gave me the inspiration to take my instrument a lot more seriously and dedicate myself to practicing to get where I want to be. And then from there, I got into players like Guthrie Govan,
Yes.
and then Pat Metheny in the jazz world. And I also take a lot of inspiration from other instruments, like guys like Tigran Hamasyan, who's a jazz pianist. Rhythmically, he's very inspirational. So I get a lot of inspiration from him, and also another guy called Avishai Cohen, who's an upright bass jazz player who has a very good understanding of jazz harmony and, once again, rhythm. So it's not only guitarists, but from all different parts of the music world. I was lucky because I grew up in a fairly musical household. My mum was a piano teacher,
Oh.
and so I'd wake up to people being taught downstairs as a weekend, and that really got the kind of musical cogs turning in my brain, and really was probably the catalyst that really got me, started on my musical journey. I started on piano, and I dabbled a bit in clarinet and drums, but then I came across guitar. And when I found the guitar, I tried to transition a lot of the ideas I had from the piano, and I tried to work out ways of playing that kind of similar sound on the guitar. So I kind of did a lot of like piano-like tapping lines on the guitar to try and emulate that sound, that kind of sustained, almost harp-like sound. And I also gravitated towards just general tapping, which allowed me to play like wider intervals on the guitar, much like a keyboard player could do. So yeah, I feel like having that strong foundation in piano from a young age really helped me on the journey as a general musician, but also as a guitar player. It's really fascinating to see the evolution of guitar. I mean, back in the day, it was just people strumming 3 or 4 chords around a campfire, singing folk music, which has its place and I very much enjoy. But nowadays it's crazy. You can go onto Instagram, you can see people doing like 8-finger tapping stuff, or like playing with their thumbs, like slapping the guitar. It's really inspirational. I think there's a whole host of amazing players in the acoustic world. You know what I mean? There's like insane guys that are using their guitar almost like a drum. They're playing it in a very percussive way. John Gom is one of my favorite guys doing that stuff, and he, like I mentioned, he's playing the rhythms that the drummer would play, but he's also playing chords by slapping his hand with the left hand and playing harmonics that ring on. Tommy Emmanuel's another big inspiration for me. I've seen him a bunch of times, and he just like emits this kind of joy when he plays guitar. When I went to see him way back, maybe like 10 years ago, in a place called Red Hill in the UK, a guy called Andy McKee supported him. And at that point, I had no clue who he was, but he was like this YouTube sensation that was blowing up. And he just completely blew me away. He was pushing the guitar in so many interesting ways. So yeah, there's a whole host of fascinating players out there that constantly just push the boundaries of guitar. It's fascinating. So my rig is very, very small. I have a Neural DSP quad cortex pedal, which is like the size of a lunchbox. It's tiny. And that allows me to be able to travel around the world and even have it above my head on a plane. I don't need to lug around a huge amplifier, or I don't need to hire an amplifier every time I play a show. All of the tones that I need are inside this very small kind of lunchbox sized pedal. And the other good thing about this is that not only does it sound basically exactly the same as an amplifier, it also is always going to be the same. There's no other aspects that can change the tone on stage. Because if you have an amplifier, you'll need to microphone the amplifier, and then it's never going to be quite the same. And the dials might change whilst you're in the tour bus. So when I plug in my pedal, I know that the settings will always be the same. And it goes directly into the mixing desk. So the sound is very clean, and there's no other things that can get in the way of that. So that's generally why I choose it. And in terms of my guitar, once again, it's very compact and small. I'm very lucky to have been playing them for, well, it feels like 9 years now. It was in 2014. They sent me my first 8-string guitar. And at that point, I hadn't played a Strandberg, and I'd never even played an 8-string guitar. So I got the guitar like a day before I was playing the Prognation Shattered Fortress. No, not Shattered Fortress, Prognation at Sea. It's like a cruise festival set up by Mike Portnoy. And I'd never played this 8-string guitar. So I took it, and I thought it would be a good idea to just go out and play a show without even practicing. And I made loads of mistakes. I was like doing big open chords and hitting all of the wrong notes. So it took me a while to adjust my brain to those extra strings. But in terms of the guitar, now I have my own signature model with them, and it's more than I could ever have dreamed of, really. Like growing up playing guitar is something I always strove towards, to have my own guitar, to call my own. And it's a beast. It's got 8 strings, it covers all of the tones that I use in Haken, and it also has Lundgren M8 pickups, which are really nice for those kind of lower, clean tones. But when you get to those really gamey sounds, there's a lot of clarity in the low end, so everything sounds very clear out front. And I've got one other feature on it. It's got a kind of coil tap, which gives you those kind of like twangy, telly, crunchy like tones, which is definitely a huge kind of aspect of my playing, which I gravitate towards quite a lot. So yeah, I couldn't be happier with the guitar. Very grateful for Strandberg for building it for me, and they've been very, very generous with me over the years.